Welcome to Planet MicroCap. I'm your host, Robert Kraft, and joining me today is Sam Rubin. He is the president and CEO of LightPath Technologies. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is LPTH on NASDAQ. Sam, good to see you. Thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me again. Excited
Absolutely.
to talk and share what we've been up to.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's been pretty much a full year since the last time we did an interview together. I invite everybody to go check out that due diligence podcast that we did together. We published that on July 20th, 2022. So we have a lot of updates to get into, but
oh my God, yeah.
It's a lot. But before we get into the updates and everything, for folks that may not have ever heard of LightPath or didn't see that interview that we did together, can you give us that quick overview of the company and then we'll go from there?
Absolutely. Great. So LightPath is a tech company, as the name implies, in the field of optics or photonics, meaning interaction of light and matter, cameras, lasers, imaging, microscopes, all of that kind of falls under photonics. 30-plus-year-old company, originated out of making optical components, meaning individual lenses, using its unique proprietary technology of high volume molding of the lenses, kind of like plastic injection molding. The last 3 years since I joined as CEO, we have been pivoting into a new strategic direction of focusing more on overall solutions. We understand that the more industries want to use optics, which is a fairly complicated technology, if I may say, the more they want to use it, the less domain expertise the average customer has. So if 20 years ago, our customers knew about optics way more than we did, and all they needed was someone to make the lenses for, now it's almost the other way around. Our customers today do not want to always know about optics. From their point of view, they want to get pixels. They want to get the image and do their work from there on. They're not going to hire the PhDs needed, invest $10 million in the metrology and clean room and all of that just to embed optics into their systems. And so the change in the supply chain structure of the industry, which we're sort of, riding and taking to a whole new level, is really moving from components to solutions. From the customer's point of view, all what he wants is the pixels at the end. And we're now working with them on that.
Okay. So we have a lot to update on today. Like I said, it's been a year since we last did an interview together. I'd probably say the bulk of those updates are probably the two announcements that you just came out with this week. And, for the record, we're actually recording this on Friday, July 28th, 2023. On July 26th, you announced the acquisition of Visimid Technologies. And then on July 25th, you announced the U.S. Defense Department funding to qualify additional materials as substitutes for germanium. That's a lot. Tell us about these news announcements and how they affect the company.
Thing. I'll quickly add before that, that is probably half a year ago, actually, almost to date, we did a capital raise, which was 3x oversubscribed. And when we did it, was at a great valuation, didn't need to do warrants or anything, and the stock price went up 45% the next day. So, that was really a catalyst to enabling a lot of our growth and what we're up to now. And those two are sort of part of that and also in perfect timing. So germanium is something, the topic of germanium we've been talking about for a while and preparing and working on that. So US imports hundreds of millions of dollars of germanium a year, mostly from China. The other main source is Russia, which today no one imports from. Germanium is used in semiconductors, as everyone knows from the news today, solar panels, and optics. Roughly 25% of it goes into optics. So $100 to $150 million of germanium every year goes into optics for infrared imaging. We've been developing alternatives to that. Materials we call black diamond, to make it easy to pronounce, rather than chalcogenide, a technical name. And those materials are glass, which we produce here in Orlando, do not depend on China or any other country like that for their raw ingredients going in, and have many advantages. Some of them, it's much more easily scalable production-wise, can be made in different sizes, can be tuned, the parameters of the optical and mechanical parameters can be fine-tuned, and so on. And we've been working on this for a few years. a year and a half ago, we received from the government the exclusive license for additional materials they have developed in their labs in the Navy. And those materials are very, very promising. And really, you know, we've been sort of preparing for the day, which happened a month ago, about where China is going to limit the supply of germanium. And so now we're at the position where we can provide an alternative, not to semiconductors or solar panels, but for optics. For 25% of the germanium that gets imported and goes into optics, we can replace that with our materials. DoD has been on top of this with us for close to a year now. We've been working together. We've had, you know, this last funding that we announced is one of multiples that are now at $2 to $3 million in total, and which are essentially there to enable us to accelerate the adoption of those materials. We already use those materials in commercial applications, left, right, and center, but defense is a whole other world. It needs qualification in many different levels, parameters that we, you know, on Earth don't care about, but if you take it up to space, are pretty critical. And so the funding from DoD now comes at a perfect time to really essentially finance that qualification, give us money to go and now do all the tests and all the work needed so those materials can be used instead of germanium.
So my one follow-up to all that, because, you know, and this is a classic case in MicroCap of, you know, a well-known institution choosing to work with a MicroCap for all intents and purposes, you know, a critical project. So why did the Department of Defense pick LightPath? I mean, there's recording this sub 70 million market cap. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there are a few players in this field. Most of them are either German or Chinese today. And none of them have this exclusive license that we have to those materials. So the key really goes to 18 months ago when we locked in an exclusive license from the government for the new materials that they developed in their labs. And that license is into perpetuity and cost us all of about $10,000 to get, because the timing was perfect and we were at the right time at the right place. And we were able to lock it in. And so that was a year and a half ago. The last year and a half, we've been working on completing the R&D phase that the government started. And now we're getting ready really for production and for scaling. And though we're not maybe as big as, say, the Chinese Vital Materials, which are a multi-billion-dollar material company, we are actually the largest producer in the US for this type of glass, by far, almost. And so, you know, it was really a perfect fit in terms of where we wanted to go and what the government needed.
Very good. All right. So to close out our conversation here today, from what you can tell us, you know, based on all the news that the company has put out, you know, not just this week, but over the last 6 months, you know, what would you then say are some of the next steps or value catalysts moving forward that folks should really pay attention to with regard to LightPath?
Absolutely. So I'd say we currently have 3 pillars of growth that we look at. One is the defense business driven by the materials. If we even replace only half of the places where germanium is being used in optics today, we're talking about tens of millions of dollars of revenue just from the material itself, not even the optics and optical systems that we make out of it. So that by itself is sort of a nearly doubling the size, or doubling what we are today just for that aspect alone. And again, we have the exclusivities there. A second pillar is automotive. Department of Transportation announced their intention of making emergency braking systems mandatory and having those have better technology than exists today. Well, we've been working for the last 3 years with auto manufacturers. We've been fully qualified by one of the largest out of Detroit to have our thermal assemblies being added into their vehicles to provide another layer of information for the emergency braking systems, essentially detecting if something is alive or not. Is that a rock or a deer at the side of the road? And there we're looking at our ASP per car is around $20 to $50 per car, depending on the complexity. They're talking about scaling to 1 million cars in 5 years. That was before the DOT announcement. Now it's going to be even more. So we're looking, and we're working with multiple car companies. It's enough for us to land one of them as a supply agreement, and we're already looking at something that would double or triple the size of the company alone. So we've been, for the last 3 years talking about switching to solutions rather than components, meaning helping our customer design the complete solution. And then we capture the value by selling the solution for, in the case of optics, hundreds of dollars instead of tens of dollars for the components alone. The acquisition of Visimid really brings us to the next level there. If today, up to 15 to 20% of our revenue is from optical solutions, those assemblies at hundreds of dollars, every one of those assemblies gets connected to a detector and electronics behind it. Visimid does the same what we do in the optics in terms of customizing for the customer use. They do the same on the detector electronics and imaging system behind it, imaging engine, essentially. However, the unit price for those is nearly 10 times that of optics. So if you pay $200 for the optics, you're going to pay about $2,000 for the detector and electronics behind it. So Visimid essentially lets us take this growth we've been having and this immense success in the optical solutions and add a whole new layer to it that is both much higher value unit-wise, price-wise, and solves another level of problems for the customer. Because the customers today, unless they want to hire FPGA programmers, learn how microbolometers work, learn all of that, just like with optics, unless they're willing to do all of that, which is a big investment, they can't really customize the electronics of their detection. And with Visimid, now we'll be able to customize for customers the optical solution and the electronics and detector driven behind that. So a really perfect fit in terms of that strategy of solutions.
Very good. All right, well, Sam, we're there. So where can our audience go and find more information on LightPath Technologies?
Absolutely. The website is a great place. You'll be seeing over the next 6 to 12 months, you'll be seeing a few things. One is announcements that relate to those 3 pillars of growth: automotive, defense, and the new materials, and solutions. You'll also be seeing it in the form of new products and web pages added to our online presence. So if before we had 1 camera that we developed and launched nearly a year ago, or half a year to a year ago, now we're going to have maybe 10 of those, because with Visimid, it's bringing a whole new level of solutions that we're going to offer. Some of them are going to be very specific, like fire detection or high temperature inspection, so on. Some of them more generic. So you're going to see press releases about automotive, new materials coming out, both in press releases on the web, and new solutions being offered on our website.
Very good. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. Good luck. Stay safe. And I look forward to our next update.
Same here. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.